Strong communities, strong communities. The very best places for you and me are strong communities.
When we listen, when we share,
things always go better.
When we show how much we care,
we grow strong together. Strong communities, strong communities. The very best places for you and me are strong communities.
Hi, my name is Stewart Mann.
And I'm Deborah Strahorn, and welcome to Storybooks for Strong Communities.
In this series of videos, we're going to be sharing with you some of our favorite stories from children's picture books. Stories that show the importance of being in a community, of supporting other people in your community, of having a strong community around you.
And if you like them, you can find them at your favorite library, or if you really want them, you can purchase them at a local bookstore.
So now it's time for Storybooks for Strong Communities. Well, our first story is about someone who feels very different. Now, of course, we're all different. We're all very unique. You know, I am an interesting mixture of my parents. I kind of look a lot like my dad, but sometimes I act a lot like my mom. I have qualities from both of them. And from all of the things around me, members of my family, the places I grew up, the places I went to school, we're all like that. You're probably like that too. You can think of the different things that made you who you are. Well, our story today is about someone who can really feel how different and unique she is. It's in this book called Marisol McDonald Doesn't Match. And you can see it's in Spanish too. Marisol McDonald no combina. It's written by Monica Brown with illustrations by Sarah Palacios, and it was translated from English into Spanish by Adriana Dominguez. And it's a fun story about a girl who doesn't match. Now, usually when we say something doesn't match, it might be like clothes don't match, or even the fabrics behind me. This one has bright colors. This one has lots of lines and shapes. It would look kind of funny if you wore a dress made of that and a jacket made of that. But that's kind of how it was for Marisol McDonald. She's a girl and she's got kind of brownish skin, but bright orange hair, because that's how she is. Well, in the story, Marisol tells the story, and she tells about, well, she starts at the beginning saying, my name is Marisol McDonald, and I don't match. And it's in Spanish too. Me llamo Marisol McDonald y no combino. And she tells about how she has a cousin named Tati that she plays soccer with. And he says, well, Marisol, why is your skin kind of brownish, but you're like mine, but your hair is bright orange? And we figure out that her cousin was probably from her mother's side of the family, and her mother came from a country called Peru in South America. But her father his family was from Europe, and especially from a country called Scotland. And her father has much lighter colored skin and bright orange hair. We call it red hair. And so Marisol got her orange hair from her father, but her darkish brown skin from her mother. And her cousin says, well, why don't you match? And she says, it's just how I am. And then she tells about one morning when she's getting up for school and she's putting on her clothes, and her brother, her older brother, says, Marisol, that doesn't match. She's wearing green polka dots and purple stripes. And she says, well, it looks good to me. And then when she's getting ready for school and she's making her lunch, she likes to make peanut butter and jelly burritos. Now, usually peanut butter and jelly goes on bread and rice and beans go on a burrito, but she likes it that way, peanut butter and jelly on a burrito. And as she's making it, she shows how she sometimes speaks both Spanish and English. And so she says, Mami, papi, can I have un perrito, a puppy dulce, a sweet little puppy, please, por favor. She's asking for a puppy, and her father says, maybe, and her mother says, quizás, and they wink, and she shows how she speaks both languages and just mixes them up. And then when she goes to school, she talks about how her teacher, Miss Apple, who's very nice, looks at her paper and says, Marisol, why did you write your name like that? Your first name in cursive and your last name in print. We're trying to learn both, but you shouldn't do them both at the same time. But Marisol said, oh, that's how I like it. Eso me gusta. I like it like that. Then when she was outside at recess with her friends Ali and Emma and Noah, Ali and Emma wanted to play pirates, but Noah wanted to play soccer. And so Marisol said, well, podemos jugar a fútbol como piratas. She said, we can play soccer like pirates. But they didn't like that idea, so she just went off to the swing and swung by herself. And then after recess, they had art class. And she did a picture that had a purple elephant with green polka dots and bright blue glasses. And her teacher, Miss Apple, said, you certainly make the most interesting pictures, Marisol. And then when it was lunch and she was sitting with her friend Ali, and he saw her peanut butter and jelly burrito, and he said, why do you have that? And she said, porque me gusta, because I like it. And he said, Marisol, you don't match. You couldn't even match if you tried. And that made her start to think, could she? And she said, yes, I could. And she seemed to take it as a challenge. She thought about it all the rest of the day. And then the next day when she woke up, she looked around her closet and she found clothes that matched. Even if it was going to be the most boring thing in the world. It was hard to find clothes in her closet that actually were all the same color. But she found an orange skirt and an orange shirt and an orange hairband. And that morning she made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on bread. And when she went to school, she wrote her name all in print. And when it was time for recess, she just played plain old football. That's the Spanish word for soccer, not like pirates at all. And when it was time for art, she just drew a picture of a house, and she made it look like a regular house, and she made clouds that were white, and trees that were brown, with brown trunks and green branches, and a blue sky, and a rainbow with regular rainbow colors. And when Miss Apple came around, she said, Marisol, that doesn't look like your regular kind of art. Why? Is something wrong? And Marisol said, well, today I'm trying to match. Estoy tratando de combinar. I'm trying to match. And Miss Apple said, why? Marisol couldn't really think of a good reason. Oh, and then at lunch she had her peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the bread was kind of mushy. The burrito never got mushy. Oh, it was such a boring day. Well, at the end of the day, Miss Apple gave her a note. And when she opened it up as she was leaving, she read it, and it said something like, Dear Marisol, I just want you to know that I like you just the way you are. You are an amazing, exciting, fun, interesting, artistic, creative, bilingual, Peruvian, Scottish, American girl. And it made her so happy. She skipped all the way home. And the next day, she decided that matching wasn't for her. And so instead of trying to wear something that was all the same color or that worked perfectly together, why, she put on some fun clothes. She put on a polka dotty shirt, kind of like this, and she had a skirt with lots of different bright colors like that. Oh, and she put on the hat from Peru that her grandmother had brought back or had given to her from Peru. And she said, I am Marisol McDonald, and I don't match. And she was proud of it. And then, that day, her parents said to her, Marisol, let's go to La Perera. Let's go to the dog pound to get puppy. And so they went to get her a puppy. And she looked at all of the little puppies and she thought, which one should I get? Which one would be for me? There were big dogs and little dogs and floppy dogs and furry dogs. And then she saw it. She saw a dog that had one pointy ear and one floppy ear, one brown eye and one eye that was kind of bluish gray. And when she got that puppy, the puppy came to her and landed on her lap, and the puppy made a sound that sounded like a meow, almost like purring. And she said, this is the puppy for me, because she could see that puppy did not match. And you know what she called her puppy? Menino. Menino in Spanish, which means kitty. And that's our story of Marisol McDonald doesn't match. Marisol McDonald no combina. And even if you sometimes match, you're probably like Marisol somehow. You're different in interesting ways. You're unique. You're just who you are. And like Marisol, we all have to be proud of who we are, because a strong community is made up of a lot of different, unique, wonderful, special individuals, just like you and me.
Our next story is about a little boy who dares to be different. It's called Morris Micklewhite and the Tangerine Dress, written by Christine Baldacchino, pictures by Isabel Malenfant. When I was a little girl, I remember my mother and her best friend dressing up to go to a really fancy party. They put on sparkly dresses and gloves all the way up to their elbows. They wore lots of makeup and even put on wigs. And they finished with brightly colored lipstick. I couldn't wait to grow up so I could play dress up just like them. Well, in this story, a little boy by the name of Morris Micklewhite likes to play dress up, and his favorite outfit is a tangerine dress. And this story is about the courage to be who you are. My favorite color is blue, but Morris's favorite color is tangerine, kind of like my shirt. It's kind of orangey like an orange, but a little brighter. Kind of like this. Now, Morris liked to play dress up, but Morris liked to do a lot of things. And I think his favorite color was orange because it reminded him of his mother's hair, which was kind of red-orange. And his cat, Moo, was orange like a tiger. And even the sunset was orange. So Morris Micklewhite really liked tangerine orange. And he liked his mother's pancakes, and he liked Mondays because on Mondays he went to school. And at school he enjoyed doing all sorts of things. He liked to color and draw and paint. He enjoyed puzzles, and he really enjoyed singing in the school choir. La 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 la, la 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 la. But his most favorite activity of the day was the dress-up center. And in dress-up, he would put on the tangerine dress. And when he put it on and he walked, he went swish, swish, swish. Can you try that with me? Swish, swish, swish. And when he sat down, the dress went crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. Can you say that? Crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. And there were lots and lots of different shoes in Dress Up Center, but his favorite shoes went clink, 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 clink. Can you do that? Clink, 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 clink. But when Morris put on the dress, the girls made fun of him. They said, boys don't wear dresses. But Morris kept the dress on anyway and just walked around. He went over to the boys to play in the astronaut center, and the boys said, astronauts don't wear dresses. But how did they know what astronauts wore? Well, the next day, when Morris came to school, he had pink nail polish, and the girls teased him again because they said, boys don't wear nail polish. Well, he went over and put on the tangerine dress again, and at lunchtime he tried to sit with the boys at the table, and the boys scooted over and said, We don't sit with boys who wear dresses. Morris's feelings were hurt. Well, by the end of the week, Morris wasn't feeling very good. And on Friday, he told his mom he had a tummy ache. His mom said he could stay home. He stayed in bed and she made him soup and hot tea. He drank the tea and ate the soup, but he stayed in bed with the covers pulled up to his chin. And that night when he went to sleep, he had a dream. He dreamed about astronauts. He dreamed about space and blue elephants and cats with astronaut helmets. And when he woke up on Saturday morning, he started drawing. And then he colored and he painted a beautiful picture. And when he finished the picture on Sunday, he showed his mother. And she looked at it in amazement and said, "Wow, Morris, that's beautiful." And she pointed to something and said, "Who's that?" And Morris sat up straight and smiled. And he said, "That was him." And he pointed to himself and he said, "That's the tangerine dress at school." Well, Morris was so happy and he was so excited that his mom loved the picture. And on Monday morning, he rolled up the picture and stuck it in his backpack. And he went marching straight to school. And when he got to school and it was dress-up time, he went straight to the dress-up center and he put on the tangerine dress. And he grabbed his picture and he went to the boys who were already playing astronauts in their fort that they built. And he said, "Can I play?" And the boys said, "No, astronauts don't wear dresses." And that was okay. Morris built his own fort and he unrolled his picture and he taped it right to the front of his fort. And he climbed inside. And all of the kids looked at Morris and what he was doing. And the boy said, "Hey, Morris, where are you going?" And Morris said he was going to outer space. And the boy said, "Can we come?" And Morris said, "Sure." And they all climbed inside. And then they got ready for takeoff and everybody put on their seat belts. And Morris said, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. And they went flying off into outer space. And they saw stars and blue elephants and orange cats with astronaut helmets. And they had a blast. And when they came back down to Earth, during snack time, they couldn't stop talking about their adventures. And all the boys laughed and talked. And Morris felt really good about himself. And he just smiled. And then one of the girls came over to Morris and said, "Morris, it's my turn to wear the tangerine dress. Can you take it off?" And Morris said, "Sure, when I'm done." And he went back to laughing and talking and playing with all of the guys. And when he finished eating his snack, he got up to walk. And you know what sound he made. Can you help me? Swish, swish, swish. Crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. And his shoes went tap, 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 tap. And that is the story of Morris Micklewhite and the tangerine dress. And it's a story about strength and courage to be yourself, because that's what it takes. And that's what we do in strong communities.
Our last story is about another character from another book who is kind of different. Well, she finds herself in a new place, in a new school, and she's unlike most of the other children. And one thing that's important in this story is her name. You know, we all have different names, and our names mean different things to us. You know, my name is Barry. And I learned that my name, Barry, comes from, I think, Irish and Gaelic languages, and it means strong. And I do try to be strong sometimes. But I also know that my name was given to me in honor of my grandfather. His name was Harry, and he passed away before I was born, so my parents named me Barry after him to help remember him. What about your name, Deborah?
Well, I call myself Debbie, but my name is actually Deborah, and it comes from the Hebrew language, and it means swarm of bees. And sometimes I feel like I'm moving around like a swarm of bees, very busy. But I was actually named after my Aunt Doll, whose name is really Deborah, and we were born on the same day.
Wow, that's cool. Well, you probably know a story about your name, and if you don't, it might be fun to find out. Well, our story today comes from this book called The Name Jar by Young Suk Choi. Young Suk Choi wrote the story and also illustrated it. And the story is about a girl who moves from a country called Korea across the ocean in Asia to the United States. And before she leaves Korea, her grandmother gives her a little block of wood that has her name etched on it in Korean. The Korean letters look different from our letters, but she could certainly read them. And she treasured that, and she brought it as she flew across the ocean and settled into her new home. And then it was her first day to come to school. And she was on the school bus, and she had her little block out and was looking at it. And some of the children on the school bus asked her, they said, well, what's that? And what's your name?
Well, it's not for show and tell, it's something special. My name is Unhei. Unhei. Unhei.
Well, the children on the bus had never heard a name like that before, so they tried to say it, Unhai, Yunhu, Hunei. Hey you, nun ha, na ha, and Unhei started to feel very self-conscious about it. Well, she got to school, and she was in her new class, and her teacher was a man named Mr. Kokotos. And Mr. Kokotos said, children, we have a new student, and he said, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone your name?
And she looked at him and said, I haven't decided yet. When I do, I'll let you know.
And the children thought that was the strangest thing, that she didn't have a name. They wondered, had she robbed a bank or done something else bad, or why didn't she have a name? Well, later that day, she went home, and her mother asked her, how was your first day of school? And she told her mother about it, and then
she said to her mother, I think I want to change my name to an American name. My name is so hard to pronounce, and I don't want to be different. I want to be just like all the other American kids.
And her mother said, oh, but Unhei, you are different. You are special. And you should be proud of your name. It's a wonderful Korean name, and you should be proud of your culture, your Korean culture, and just where we come from and our language and everything. Well, later that afternoon, they went out to buy some things in the neighborhood, and Unhei got to see that her neighborhood was a wonderful place with lots of variety. There were different shops and restaurants. Why, there was a pizza restaurant, and of course pizza is a kind of Italian food, and there was a deli that had all kinds of sandwiches, and there was a restaurant that had Mediterranean food like falafel and hummus. And then they saw a store that was a grocery store, but it was special. It was a Korean grocery store, and when they went in, they saw the kinds of food that they were used to having back in Korea. It was all very familiar. And the man who ran the store, his name was Mr. Kim. And when he saw her, he said, oh, hello, what's your name?
And she looked at Mr. Kim and she said, Unhei.
And he said, Unhei. Oh, in Korean, that means grace. Unhei, grace. Well, when Unhei went home, she started thinking about what her name should be.
And she thought of many names, and she said, Amanda, Sarah, Susie.
Well, the next day when she got to school, she found something on her desk. It was a jar with lots of pieces of paper with names on it. Why, when she looked at that and she saw some of those names in it.
And she read the names. Daisy, Tamala, Wednesday.
And then the other students in class explained that that was her name jar, they said this would be a way that she could choose a name that she wanted. And they explained that they had put different pieces of paper in there, and some of them had put a piece of paper like from the name of their baby sister, and others had put a favorite character from a book that they had, and someone even put in Wednesday because she had arrived at school on a Wednesday. And well, after school that day, a very nice boy named Joey came up to talk to Un-hei, and he said, "Well, that's strange, don't you have any name?"
And just then, she took out the wooden block and showed it to him. He wanted to know what that was, and she said, "My grandmother gave it to me before I left Korea. It's a wooden block, and I use it to sign my name."
And then she got out a stamp pad and she took the little block and got ink on it, and she stamped it onto a piece of paper. And she showed it to Joey, and he asked her if he could keep it, and she said,
"Yes."
and so he took it. Well, after that, the next day in school, the children were all talking about the name jar. Some of the students thought that she should just close her eyes and put her hand in and see which one she picked out, and that would be her English name. And others thought that she should lay them all out and see which one she liked the best. And some were a little bit angry because they said, well, it's not fair that she gets to choose her own name and they didn't get to choose their names. Well, that weekend, she went with her mother back to the Korean store. And there she saw Mr. Kim, and he said, "Hello, Un-hei." Well, it just so happened that Joey was in the store at the same time. And Joey said, "Un-hei, is that your name?"
And she said, "It's pronounced Un-hei. Yes, Un-hei."
And Joey said, "Un-hei." And Mr. Kim explained that her name, Un-hei, means grace in Korean. Well, Joey ended up leaving before she could even ask him why he happened to be in the Korean grocery store. Well, when Monday came, Un-hei rushed into class to get the name jar and look at all the names. But when she got there, she was surprised to see
the name jar was gone.
Everyone looked around for the jar, but no one could find it, and no one had any idea where it was. Well, Mr. Kokotos asked her, "Did you have a chance to look through the names in the name jar?"
And Un-hei replied, "Yes, and I'm ready to introduce myself." And then she wrote her name on the board in English and Korean letters. "My name is Un-hei," she said. Un-hei.
And the class tried to say it just like the kids had on the bus. Un-hei, un-hai, un-hei. But she helped them. She repeated it a few more times.
Un-hei, un-hei,
Un-hei. And soon they knew how to say her name. At the end of the school day, everyone said, "Goodbye, Un-hei." And Un-hei looked around for that boy, Joey, but she didn't see him anywhere. Well, when she got home later that afternoon, she was upstairs and her mother called up, "Un-hei, come down. There's someone here to see you." And she came downstairs, and there she saw Joey holding the name jar. And she asked him,
"Where did you find the name jar?"
And he explained, "Actually, I took it away because I wanted you to use your own real name, not some other name." And then he said, "Would you like to keep all the names from the name jar?"
And she replied, "Yes, I'll keep them as souvenirs."
And then he said, "I have an idea. Maybe you can write some names in Korean to put in the name jar, and then we can all pick our own Korean names out of the jar."
And she liked that idea.
And he said, "But you don't have to give me a name. I already have one." And he showed her a wooden block. He said, "Mr. Kim helped me to pick this out." And he gave the block to her, and she looked at the Korean characters on it.
And she read it. It said, "친구," friend.
And that's the story of the name jar, about that girl, Un-hei, from Korea. And it reminds us that our names are something that makes us all special. And it's wonderful to be in a community where we have people from all over the world or different parts of our country, and we all have different interesting names, and there's a story to every name. And getting to know everyone helps us to make our communities strong.
Strong communities, strong communities. The very best places for you and me are strong communities. When we listen, when we share,
Things always go better.
when we show how much we care.
We grow strong together.
Strong communities, strong communities. The very best places for you and me are strong communities.